Welcome to the Working Class Women Movement.
Using our voices to make sure they don't fall on deaf ears.
Reclaiming the activism of working class women.
Increasing chances of gender equality and pay equality.
This podcast advocates for women's voices and equal rights in a working class environment.
Focusing on economic issues and claiming women's space in leadership.
Wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo.
Good day, Mamello. Tell my listeners a bit about yourself and your profession.
Hello, everyone. I am Mamello, based in South Africa, and my friend is all the way in Australia. So I'm a quality control and a quality assurance manager for a color manufacturing company. So I'm responsible for day-to-day quality control and quality assurance. So I'm running the business there.
That's great. That's really great. So statistics show that it will take 90 years for us to close the gap for gender equality. And as much as organizations like the UN Women working hard to reach this goal in 10 years, this feels as if only 5 generations from now will be the ones to enjoy the fruit of our labor, and the consistent hardships we face as women on a day-to-day will only be seen in the year 3000. So take me on your working journey and how you feel the gap is so big and yet so emotionally draining. Like, what are you experiencing being in the position that you are in? And what are your day-to-day challenges as a woman? What are your day-to-day challenges as a Black woman? What are your day-to-day challenges working in a lab? Because who would have ever imagined a Black woman wearing a white robe?
Exactly, right? Wow. First of all, the biggest challenge is being a Black woman and having to be like the decision maker. You know, you're the one who's responsible for the final say. So the challenge is, first of all, as a woman, we are still overlooked. So whenever you say, I don't want this to be done, it's going to be overlooked. It's going to be second guessed. It's always going to be questioned. Instead of your word being taken here and there, there's always going to be, you know. And another challenge is that the race issue is a big challenge in a sense of, first of all, I'm a woman, and whatever decision I implement, that is questioned. And then next thing is the race factor, whereas that makes it extra hard, you know, because people don't really take what you say there and there, you know. And another issue is that it's been a difficult experience. Another issue is the support, you know.
Yes.
Support, that's difficult because it's not like there's actually someone who backs me up. You know, when I say 1, 2, 3, there isn't that support that one requires, you know, especially in the position I'm in. So there are certain decisions that I took and implemented, yet they were overlooked.
And when these decisions are overlooked, my question is, so I want you to paint a picture for us how you, like, because you saying that you're not being heard and you not being understood. And sometimes it also happens that when we're very soft-spoken, we tend to be given, we all have to be passive-aggressive to be heard. If you're not passive-aggressive, then sometimes you're so soft-spoken, people don't hear you. So can you give us an outline on how it actually looks? The reason why I'm saying this is because I know when I talk, the reason I'll say it's racial, maybe it's not racism per se, but it's racial or a subconscious bias. When I speak, people squint. People squint like they can't hear what I'm saying, you know? So those are that unconscious bias where people don't actually understand that you are discriminating. Because if your fellow people are speaking, you do not squint. But if I speak,
not even question, you don't even second guess it. You don't question anything. It goes.
And then somebody's just squint. So if you're saying this is what is happening, paint a picture for us on your day-to-day when you're trying to be heard.
Yeah. Let's start there. So my job, let's say, first of all, we're getting raw material, right?
Yes.
So my job is to check if whether this is in alignment with our specification, if the quality is good, if it's going to work in our final products or not. So if I'm not happy, let's say with a certain batch, I'll be like, no, we're not using this. It's not going to work for us, right? And I wish I could make an example, but this might implicate my company. But there was a certain product that contained an illegal substance, right?
Yes.
And, first thing when you get raw material, check the quality, check if it's in alignment with everything. And then if you're happy, then you approve it. If you're not, then we sit down as a team. And I found X, Y, and Z in a certain product. And I was like, we are not going to use this product. We're not going to buy from the supplier. That's it. I'm rejecting everything that comes from the supplier.
Yes.
Okay. We did the whole process of rejecting, and the supplier was supposed to take their stock back. But that's the first point. The supplier didn't come. And then when we continued investigating, we found out that some of this material was used in XYZ products, whereas we had already rejected it. So do you understand? Even before we get to the final rejection, we sit together as a team.
So there's like a bypass.
Top management was there. So do you understand how many people were involved, yet everything else was overlooked and someone just decided, no, I'm not going to take what she's telling us. I'm going to continue.
Bypass her.
Using, exactly.
We're going to bypass her.
Exactly.
And I feel like a lot of people will say it's office politics, because I feel like discrimination is covered with the sense of office politics. When you voice out, it is called office politics. It's not going to be seen as, no, you're actually being discriminated because I have said what I have said, because that's why you hired me in the first place. If you then hired me to tick a box to match your diversity and inclusion, then rather tell me you're here to tick a box and I'll stay in my lane.
It's just the front. Yes, it's just the front.
Yeah.
If it's just the front, let me know. But I know what my job spec is, and I'm there to do what I'm assigned to do, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to overlook decisions that were discussed, it's not even like I didn't even decide this on my own. The whole team sat on a round table and we were like, okay, this is the final decision. But the main fact that someone in that team decided that they're going to overlook everything and continue. And guess what? That person still works for that company.
And this person is male? Is it
male? White?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. The White Boys Club.
Yeah.
The white. We call it the White Boys Club. And funny enough, when you say that, like I remember having discussions with a couple of women in engineering, and I think it's everywhere. It is everywhere to a point whereby you'd rather tip your toe because you're scared to lose your job. You'd rather put your head down because you're scared to lose your job. And these are the conversations that are being heard in the sense that how do we pass through this? And I don't know if it's a conscious bias or it's a because it's such a thin line that you don't even know if it's you targeted, because you end up feeling like it's in your head, because you don't know if you are targeted directly consciously or it's an unconscious bias. And how do you feel like this is going to, like, okay, in your position, how do you feel like it could be best addressed to be heard and for your decisions to be taken seriously? What would be your approach if you were to sit down with them and have a conversation with your team and say, this is how I feel, and address it? How would you then address it for you to be heard and seen?
I don't, honestly, I think, Nita, it's difficult, right? Like, for me, it doesn't make sense that you open a position and you appoint someone and you tell them these are your responsibilities, and when a person executes, you overlook. For me, it's a no-brainer. It doesn't make sense that you would overlook what your quality system requires. It's a whole system. Yes. It's not just someone rocking up and saying, no, this is a whole system. It's a whole process, and if you're gonna miss one point, then it might not work for the whole system. So for me, for someone to overlook it is a critical issue,
Yes.
And for you, there are certain things that are minor and we can like work around.
Overlook it, yeah.
Yeah, with some issues are minor, really. But with this one, it could literally cost the company.
Yes. And the sad part is that should it cost the company, the person who then bypasses you is going to throw you under the bus. Because now you do not have it recorded. There are no minutes saying that Mamelo picked up his agent.
It's on the minute. Don't worry. Part, I made sure. That part, I made sure. I even reported it to our head office, because we have like a monthly type of meeting with our head QA, so the head quality assurance manager. So I compile reports monthly, and I made sure that it's on the report. And we had a discussion with our QA manager. We had a whole investigation going. Everything was investigated. So should anything happen, don't worry.
You wouldn't be thrown under the bus. And
I have my backup is.
So, okay. So besides people bypassing you per se in decisions that you make, what other injustices, and we're going to call it injustices because that's what they are. What other injustices are you facing in the workplace? Are you doing more work? Because another thing that I also picked up is that you find yourself doing more work to only look at somebody who is doing almost the same work as you, and they get paid more than what you are actually, like, what other injustices are you facing within your working place besides people just bypassing your decisions and stuff?
Listen, Anita, it's not feasible to have a person occupy quality assurance and quality control. Those are two different entities. So for one, I have to manage two critical departments, which is quality control and quality assurance. So quality assurance work is more documentation based. It's more, if
the legality,
it's the whole, yes. And then the quality control is the actual material.
Product. Yeah,
exactly. So imagine that. And on top of that, imagine people overlooking and people doing whatever they want to do, and then our clients are not happy at the end of the day, and then who has to answer for that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? So I'm literally running 2 shows, one man, and that requires a lot. And this is my first time actually occupying a management position. So
Mm-hmm.
I clearly, when I signed that contract, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know
What you're
the
putting yourself into.
Exactly.
Yes.
I clearly didn't know, but I thought maybe it's a new challenge,
Yes.
and I took it, and wow, it's overwhelming to say the least. So
Yes. I
my
wanted to
day
read.
today,
I wanted to read something while you're still answering us, when you said, I honestly believe I've been put in this position to fight. I have days where I fight, but it's not really in my nature. My biggest struggle is having to be this person that I'm not. And I hate fighting, but it seems that there's no really another way out. And I'm reading this because it triggered something in me, because a good friend of mine, Mukhadi Mamadi, said the same thing in one of the videos which will be coming out soon, where she says, I put myself in a position to be so much passive aggressive, hoping to be heard, but that's not who I am. Why must I be somebody who I'm not for me to be able to be heard? So from everything that you're saying, how do you then feel, in the sense of, this is your day to day? Now you are now being put in this position where you need to be vocal, as people would, like some of us, I've been called feisty before by my ex-bosses. People like us who are very passive aggressive, and now you're very soft spoken. Now this is your day to day. Now you're turning into a character that you're not, so that you can get through the day. How are you maneuvering through that? And how best can you refrain from being passive aggressive?
And
Echo.
I tell you a very, very, very personal story. This whole thing was super frustrating. The past year, I remember I'd always have these breakdowns, and it was frustrating, and it took over me that I would even take out the frustration on my son. And it was a difficult year, because I had to learn that there's a time and a place for me to show that other side, and so I had to filter it out. So I only had like a moment where I realized that I'm taking that energy home as well. When Anita, what I did was very wrong. I lost my temper on my son. We were getting ready for school, and he was like, no, I don't want this, I don't want that. And I just stormed out. It was horrible. But that's when I noticed that I'm not filtering it out. I have to be this person at work, and then when I get home, I have to be a mother, my normal self. And at that moment when I lashed out on my son, that's when I realized that I'm not balancing the two, right? Because I have to be this person, I have to be this aggressive person, I have to be this outspoken person at work. And that's not me. Like, I'm not really a vocal person. I'm not really, I'm not this person, but I had to kind of channel myself in a sense where I'm a mother at home, and when I'm at work, I'm this lady who doesn't take crap, because if I continue with the same personality, then the overlooking won't stop. So now it's like, I'm this person, I'm this mean person at work, especially when it comes to, I know that the people that overlook with my team, I'm fine. I'm my normal self. But the people who are a problem, they don't see the other side. I'm this person who doesn't take crap. So at times the frustration would build up and I would take it home and I wouldn't be able to filter it out. So yeah, for me, 2020, 2019 was a challenge, and managed the two characters, because it was new. I've never been another person at work, one person at work and one person at home. No,
Yes.
that was new. So I didn't know how to, manage that. So yeah, for some odd reason, when we were, jumping to 2021, my prayer was, God, I just need you to give me mental strength. And that's my prayer every morning. Mental strength. I just need mental strength, because I was on the verge of losing it. I was, but yeah.
And a lot of companies don't understand the magnitude of psychological help, because now you're turning your personality into be somebody that you're not, and having to snap out of it and then going home. I mean, that's why it's called workplace balance, right? You need to be able to balance what happens at work and be able to go home and still be the person that you are. And what really, really is frustrating, and I think it's because when I went to this United Nations function for women and gender equality, and proclaiming women in leadership, hearing that statistics have measured 90 years to 100 years to close the gap, in my mind I'm like, do we why is it going to take so long? One, why? I mean, do we keep on fighting, or do we just say, you know what, our kids will figure it out in 100 years? Our kids will figure it out in 100 years.
Imagine.
We really can't. Do we still keep on fighting? Do we keep on? I'm just lost for words, because
let's create a movement.
And it's that platform that we need.
More and more women are occupying management positions. More and more women are becoming decision makers.
But sometimes it always feels like it's also a facade, because a woman might be given a position, but her hands are so tied. There is just no point in her. Like she can't make the decisions. She has the title, but she can't make the decision. So it has to be given completely with the power to change. It's one thing giving a woman a platform to voice out who they are and voice out wanting to change, because we believe giving women a chance to be in leadership, it will really change the dynamics of a lot of things, be it politics, be it corporate, be it retail. It will change completely that. I mean, even making a woman president changes a lot of dynamics in a country.
A lot. Like, it would definitely, because, women, they would consider a lot of aspects. Like, I think with a woman, they would understand, okay, when you are a corporate, if you're a woman in corporate and you have a family, how do you balance the act? So women would come with that perspective of, okay, if I have an employee who has 2 kids, for instance, and they would understand the whole structure. Do you understand? Because we are so many things to a lot of people. We are not just, if you're in a management position, you're not just a manager, you are also a parent, you are also a wife to someone. So do you understand? You are giving so much of yourself off, and women would structure out the whole corporate in a way that balances everything. And unfortunately, I guess maybe it's just the front that put us in such positions, because they still make the final
decisions. And I feel like people also, like, another thing that I've picked up, and I've picked it up from an episode that's going to come out, an unspoken truth on why women are victims. It's coming out on the 15th. I had a conversation with Brian, and I've had a few conversations with my brothers trying to understand, doing my little research, because I thought it could be a generational thing where older generation think this way, but the new generation thinks yes. So I'm looking at 20-year-olds, how they perceive women, and how 30-year-olds perceive women, and how 40-year-olds perceive women. And I've realized that once I say I'm a feminist, to them, their argument is that we're saying we want to be as equal as men. And the way they see it is biologically. So in the first thing that comes in a man's mind is that you can never be physically strong like me. You can never be biologically as big and this and this. And I'm like, that's the problem. And I feel like a lot of people, regardless of the age and the difference in generations, when we say to men, we are equal to men, the first thing that comes in their head is biologically. So they don't look at it in the sense, you get me? Because when I'm having this conversation, it's like, yeah, but you can't be a man. And I'm like, no, I do not want to be a man. I want to be treated when you make a decision. And if I make a decision, may it be treated fairly and equally. Exactly. And I remember my brothers, and we had this whole fight, and I say it in that episode because it became heated in this home. I mean, we were banging doors and everything. That's how heated this conversation went, because I'm such a feminist. And they're like, yeah, but Anita, women have privilege. And I'm like, what do you mean? They said, privilege. Yeah. They say to me, but when women get divorced, they take the kids. And I'm like, that is not privilege. Yeah. Taking kids in a divorce is not privilege. At all. It is not. And I'm like, if we could have turned the tables and say, okay, I don't want to be a mom, you can be a dad, we could do it. But society does not allow mothers to say, I know I'm not raising this child, my husband is doesn't allow us. So you can't consider that privilege. So even when I say that to Brian, he says, yeah, so what do you mean we need to be equal? Because we can never give birth. And I'm like, that's where the whole conversation is misconstrued, because we're not saying we want you to bear children. We're not saying to you, we want to have muscles. We're just saying when you make a decision to walk out of your family and not be judged, can I do the same thing and walk out of my family and not be judged? That's when we say equal. When we say equal, if I am this high manager in a company and you are in the same position, may we have the same pay because we're doing the same job.
Thank you.
So we're not talking about whether you are stronger biologically or you are a logical thinker and I'm an emotional thinker. All I'm saying is that when we wake up to go to work between 9 to 5, can we be considered as one person, which is being a human being? You have put in the effort. Thank you for your effort. Therefore, you'll be paid equally. Therefore, you'll be seen when there's promotions in leadership. You'll be seen equally, because now what I'm gathering in women being in leadership, and my biggest fear is that there is some change, but for me the change is so minimal, and yet
it's very minimal.
And yet these people don't have voices, and they still have no voices at all.
Exactly.
Even if they are in that position. So I think it's going to be a very long time. And I like the fact that you said I lead my team. And in leading your team, I know right now you feel very voiceless. And the people who are above you or higher than you make the decisions. But I feel like what makes the movement or what makes gender equality progressive is people like you showing people who are beneath you how to be a leader is. So you need to be a good leader to people below you, and do not focus so much on people above you. Yes. Make the difference, because now the people below you are the ones who will vouch for you when it's time for promotions to happen. You know, they will vouch for you and say, but this person is a leader, because people misunderstand what being a manager is. Being a manager isn't managing just a person. Being a manager is being a leader. You need to teach people, you need to educate people, so that the day you decide to step away, there are people who can grow in your position because you taught them well. And that's what the older generation has to do, is they have to be able to say, I can leave Mamelo in a leadership position because I taught her well.
Exactly.
instead of
Exactly.
belittling you, instead of making you feel less than. But it's it's a never-ending fight, Mamelo, and I think we
It's a
need to have.
difficult one.
I feel like the next episode, maybe we have to have a round table where we all have this conversation and say, because we want to be a part of a movement, and when we say movement, we're not saying men don't matter. Let's be understood clearly. We're just saying that women need to be treated equally. Because
Equally.
our issues, I remember when I went to the UN function, some girl said to me, "Oh, Anita, oh my God, you're a single parent, you work, you volunteer your time, and you have
Imagine.
a podcast. When do you sleep? And you go to
What?
school." She says to me,
Exactly.
"Do you sleep?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." How many hours? I say to her, 4 or 5 hours a day. Sometimes it depends. 5 hours is really a good
At most.
day, you know?
At most.
Yeah. And she goes, "But how do you do it?" And I'm like, "Do I have a choice? I don't have a choice. And if I have to show up, I can't show up at work and say I'm tired because I was being a parent. I'm tired because I had to make hard decisions. No, I can't say those things. I need to show
There's
up.
no excuses.
Yeah, there's no excuses. And you need to give 100% in your work. And when that 100% is not received, it's so demotivating because they do not understand the sacrifice you make each and every day to show up for your work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the sacrifice to show up, bathed clean with a smile. Just that sacrifice on its own is bigger than anything else. It's bigger than the salary. It's bigger than lunchtime at work or leave day or sick day. Just that sacrifice of waking up in the morning and saying, "Yes, boss, I am here to clock my time."
My time.
Happily so, without making any mistakes.
And deliver.
Do they even know if you slept? They don't know that. Do they even know if you ate? They didn't know that.
They don't know. Exactly.
Do they ask? They don't. Because once they ask, they say, "Oh, females have started so emotional beings. Oh, too emotional."
You know how it is. You know how it is.
But they are married men with wives.
There's no platform. Imagine, Chomi, for us, nobody understands our struggles, right? And whenever we start opening up about our problems, we're just whining. We're just being women. Do you understand? But it's as if our problems don't matter, you know? It's as if we just there, you know? And it doesn't make sense, right? These people have daughters as well. They have wives. They prioritize their wives. But you, female of color, you start whining. They don't get it, you know? It's as if we were meant to just brought in this world to slave, you know? That's it.
Slave.
You know, it's as if our existence is just to work and always deliver. But it's not like that. We are also humans, you know. We also have problems and we matter as well.
And the sad reality is that not only do we face discrimination as women in our totality, be white, black, Indian, Chinese, women in our totality, then obviously race becomes a factor. But at the same time, sexual assault in workplaces, being objectified in the workplace. So now, not only are you fighting to be heard, but you're now trying not to wear something provocative. Let me put it as provocative, because now you have a top. I have a big bust, but then I noticed now you can't wear something specific because the first thing that comes in your mind is that they're not going to look at my eyes. They're going to look at my bust.
Yes.
Now you are being objectified. And then when you're saying, "Oh, but there's sexual assault in workplaces," people say, "Oh, but who got touched?" No. It's those subtle conversations, those subtle jokes, those, today I remember an ex-colleague of mine, I was wearing something the first in a long time. And the first thing he said, "Oh, Anita, it is so tight." But how did you notice
How?
how tight it is? I don't come to work to say a guy's pants are tight. I do not have time for your tight pants. I didn't come to see people's tight pants. But because he had that comment and said, oh, so how are we supposed to work now because we can't concentrate when you decided to look this good?
You
To
see, the
him, he
problem.
then laughs and makes it seem as if it's a joke. But that is
No, but he knows what he's insinuating. He knows it. So what are we supposed to do?
wear overalls. Do we cover our bodies? And that's what I'm saying. It's just so many things that happen in a workplace that has a long way to go. A very
Men
long
should
way to
just
go.
recondition their minds. That's it. Recondition how you think. Why should we always be bending over and they not doing anything?
And I just feel like the approach for us not to be frustrated, we need to change the generation that is coming, not try change and force a donkey to the water to drink. I remember in one of our meetings at work, it became a hashtag when I said, you just sit down and drink water. Because honestly, we can't change 30, 40 years of somebody's work experience and how they've built their mentality to see things the way we want them to see it. But it's in changing the upcoming generation to treat women a bit differently. So instead of us being frustrated with people who do not want to change, we need to be the change we want to see. We need to change the people who have the power to change. Hence, I have these conversations with my brothers. They might not see it now, but I know 10 years down the line, they will say, but we had this conversation with my sister.
Exactly.
This is what she meant. So it's changing the generation of our children, the generation of our siblings to be better. Hence, I guess the statistics say 100 years. Because we're no longer looking at the older generation. We're not looking at the now generation on how we're going to be the change we want to see. Because if we don't want to be the change, and if more women are so quiet because they are scared to lose their job, it is so sad. Because I'm hoping I'll ask this other girl to be a part of an interview. She posted a picture of her at her year-end function, and I say to her, wow, so diverse. She laughs. She's like, Anita, so much sarcasm. And I'm like, 30 white people, one black girl. So diverse. So diverse, And not only is she a black female, she is black female, and she's in South Africa. She's black female. And bearing in mind she's in South Africa, but majority of people in South Africa are black.
Black, exactly.
So not only is she one of many black people, or a few black people in her workplace, she is black, female, queer. So we, a lot of people would face, I'm black, I'm woman. Then there's, I am black, I'm woman, I'm queer.
So many labels, man.
And then
it just escalates.
She laughed and she goes, oh, Anita, I'm so used to this. And I'm like, but it doesn't need to get to that. What does diversity bring into a workplace? People need to understand the magnitude of how things are viewed or seen. Because I made an example in one of the meetings, and I bet you they are thinking, if anyone from my work listening to this, I really do like our company. I actually do. Like, for the first time, I feel like this company that I'm at now, this specific location, they are trying. They have a whole committee to have the discussions. They are willing to listen to, what does this mean? Even now we have changed signatures where it says you can now put your pronouns if you identify. How would you want to be, be received? Are you a her? Are you a she? Are you a them? Are you a, So which is really nice that they are transitioning. But when we had the conversation, we're having this conversation on culture, because our committee is very diverse, I should say. So we were really having just these culture conversations, because the company has a prayer room, which is quite good for Muslim people who pray around 12 o'clock. To respect that, we can't have meetings during times in which other people pray. And that's really, really, for me, it's woke. That means you are
That's
very inclusive
very
for everyone,
considerate of
right?
them.
Very considerate of
Yeah,
everybody.
very inclusive.
Very inclusive. And I'm like, for the longest of time when I worked in corporate, and I was sharing this story with them, that I used to have this mentality where I need to leave my culture at the door and come to work. And once I'm done working, then I pick up my culture at the door and go home. Right? That's how, because I knew that it's the only way for me to survive in the workplace. I can't bring my culture to work. Right? So when I was saying that to them, I was making a simple example as being in an African culture. And I know people say corporate is corporate, work is work. But because we are raised of African family, it is instilled in us. It is in us. It is DNA. You can't change it. No matter where you go in the world, you are who you are. So I'm making that, I'm African. So I share with them and I say, when we're having a conversation, if I don't look at you in a meeting in the eyes, you find it disrespectful. In my culture, I'm showing you respect.
Yeah.
Because you are therefore older than me, you are wiser, you're a leader, therefore I'll give you your platform to then speak to me. And I know it's not a hierarchy platform when you're in a workplace, but respect for us in Black culture is a lot. It's a big thing. So if you then say to me, oh, but Anita gave me, she couldn't even look at me, but then you're forgetting, but Anita is African, but Anita is Black. What does it mean? Then as a person, you then ask yourself, but what does it mean to be African? What does it mean for her to do that? Come and ask me, and then maybe I'll then educate you if I have to educate you. And another example was I suffered. I remember coming to the Melbourne office and I suffered the first, I don't know, like every time I wanted to go to the kitchen, men always stay in groups and they're a big space apart. So now I'm trying to cross and I'm thinking, but I can't cross. Not because I can't, but because in culture, you can't cross between men talking. You just can't waltz through people's conversation as if you do not care. So then I would now maneuver myself to a side, use an elevator to go to another floor to go to the kitchen.
Imagine.
So everybody's like, oh, Anita, we're so sorry. And I'm like, no. I'm not saying it so that people stop, but I'm trying to make you understand the difference between people. Whereas we all are so cultured and our upbringing is different. I suffered. I couldn't, in moments I tried to say, but Anita, you're at work. This is a corporate space. Head on, go through these men. But then a little girl in me says, but why should you be disrespectful? That's not who you raised. And it goes back to what you were saying when you said, I have to be somebody that I'm not. And we can't be those people because a workplace must be inclusive enough for you to remain the same person you came as.
Yes.
So the day you part ways with the company, you leave the same person you were.
The same person.
You can't change who you are to fit specific things. You can't. And I remember when I had that incident.
To teach myself it.
Yes, that you can't. Like when you have incidences, we can't even approach them, right? You can't talk about them. You can't be like, why are you speaking to me like this? Why did you bypass me like that? Because once you do that, now you're going to HR. Oh no, she's too well spoken. She's she's this and she's that and she's that. But people forget that we all bring culture and tradition in the workplace because that's how we were raised. If it does, and if it's a culture that discriminates, then leave it at the door and learn new stuff. If the culture suppresses the next person, then it's not good. But if it does not suppress anybody,
the other person,
then it's just something you can carry on and you can. And I remember the other company that I came from to come here, where the leaders made us do these personality classes, personality traits. And I liked how they approached it. And it really worked because the workshop taught us how we were so the same. Hence, the team clashed. So everybody, so when they hired, so this lady, when we did this whole process, she said, everybody in this team is headstrong. Everybody has a leader quality. So every time we fought,
the problem.
It wasn't because it was boys and girls and this, but every time we fought, we were fighting each other because we are the same personality.
Same character.
Same character. So then she said, then how I now have to teach you how to approach each other, meaning these people want transparency and honesty. Then she said to the leaders, then when you're having meetings, be open and transparent, because you are not leading followers, you are leading leaders. So these leaders can actually help you in decision making because they are leaders, they are not followers. Exactly. And she was saying there's nothing wrong with a follower, because then they are also a very important part of the team, because then they carry on the systems and the processes.
Exactly.
And when she said that, it made me think of...
It made so much sense, right?
It makes a lot of sense. Once you understand each other's personality in your team, then you know how to lead your team. And at the same time, it took me back to my old boss, Sandra Saunders. And I'll say her name because she is a very integral part in my life, where in one of her referral letters or testimonial letters about me, she said, do not micromanage Anita because she knows how to lead and organize her own life. If you want to frustrate her, micromanage her, and she'll walk out of that door. And this is somebody who's worked with me for 3 years, but she already knew how to treat Anita as a person and her personality. She will get the job done.
She put in the effort to learn.
So that's what we need to do, and that's what leaders need to do. Okay, so this is Mamelo in the workplace as the person who leads this team. How, therefore, with putting gender aside, with putting race aside, treat me as a human and say, this human being, what's her character? And then now you know how to navigate through her character. Is she a leader? Is she a listener? Because we're all different people. We will never be the same person.
Be the same. Exactly.
So maybe that's the approach we need to have. And in our day-to-day is that treat me as a human as you would have treated your male counterparts. The way you listen to each other. The way you... Because now... I laugh because I feel like now we're at that point where if there's voting for somebody in the workplace, we automatically putting women. Now we don't even care if she's good for it. It's like, as long as she's a woman. As long as she's a woman. Now we don't even care about the criteria, because that's how desperate we're becoming. Because it's like, okay, I don't care about the criteria.
Consists of women only. Like,
is it?
I only work with women. Yeah.
But still, yet so frustrating.
Yeah, well, I guess we it's better because we can, kind of vent out on each other.
Yes, and maneuver.
So I guess, the support is from the 3 ladies that I work with. And then everything else, there's nothing else.
You make the bathroom your best friend. That's where all the tears are heard, the gossip, the pain, the suffering. The bathroom is the place to meet as women.
Exactly. That's it, But you know how it is with us, and women are listeners. So whenever I'm feeling the heat with upper management, it's like, they started, and we just start talking, and that kind of helps because, you kind of take out whatever that you want to take out at that moment. And that's where my support comes from, my team. They understand, they know what's happening. And, I guess they also fight when they have to.
Yes.
Because there's no other option. If we don't fight, then
the change starts with you guys. You are the change. So I think now it's what you take home from this is, who do I want to be for the women I work with? And for somebody who is in university right now, wanting to go through this journey that you have taken, you need to be the change for that girl. That's the only way this whole thing will change, because we are seen as liabilities than assets. Because I remember the worst I've ever heard from a male is that, but you guys fall pregnant.
Yeah.
And you're like, so falling pregnant is being a liability, but who makes us pregnant? Like, that's another thing that
they don't think about it, right?
Who makes us pregnant? Do we wake up and then we are a liability to be pregnant? Who makes us pregnant? And at the same time, how did you come to existence? Because you came to existence because you came off a woman.
They're the same.
So maybe people need to stop seeing us as liabilities and realize that creation comes through women. We have more that we carry.
They must look at the starting point with themselves, actually. Then it would make sense that, okay, this is how it is. They should stop putting all these labels on us as women. We are not liabilities, anything like that. So they really should start making themselves the reference point, because it's so easy to, look at everything from outside. But when you make yourself the reference point, then it makes better sense.
Yeah. Before we wrap up this episode, because we're going to wrap it up because this is going to be a never-ending conversation. We have 100 years, so we will have it every year until, and I feel like as you are the first person to be in this movement, the working class women movement, like I call it now, I'm going to touch base with you again. So I want to revisit this conversation and ask you how the journey has,
if it's
progressed. Yeah, ever since.
Because I've had conversations with my boss. This is now regarding the salary. So I'm waiting for March. I spoke to him last year and I told him this and this and this, and he told me about the budget, and the year end is the fiscal is end of March.
Yes.
So I want to see, and I'll
April.
let you know
if
what I told him, he took it, or he was like, Daki,
Yeah.
So so I already started this conversation with my boss.
Yeah.
With regards to the salary. And I want to see if he actually kept his word.
Yeah. So gender equality and a pay gap is a very big integral part of our lives, an integral part of our working environment as we're growing in our workspaces. We all can't be entrepreneurs. We all can't be, there still has to be people who actually clock their time to 9 to 5, whatever the case might be. So I know you haven't passed this stage where you are learning who you are as a Black woman in a working space. But if you were to give advice to a graduate right now, listening to this podcast, what would be your first approach? Because you also got into the working world with no idea what you were getting yourself into. Now you're in it and you're like, oh Lord, this is a disaster. Now, instead of scaring that graduate, what would be your advice to somebody who's about to conquer the working world?
Personally, I would tell them to be very headstrong and steadfast, trust me, I remember the first time I actually got my taste of the inequality. I was doing my training. So I was fresh from university doing my training, and I didn't know that inequality existed until the lady who was actually assisting me in my training was attacked by our boss. And that was bad, because our boss just she just came to her and she just started accusing her of things. And it was not a formal approach. I would think if someone is in the wrong, you call them to your office, you address the issue, and if it's a heated argument back and forth, it's between the two of you. But the approach was crazy, because she just walked into the lab. She started screaming, and Tabang was not even, it's a long story, but the person who was responsible for QC at the time was fired. So Tabang, I think she was only like 2 or 3 years in the lab, so she wasn't really experienced. But when things went wrong, at that moment, she had to take the heat. And I'm like, this person is not, and there was no formal appointment. Okay, now Thabang is responsible for 1, 2, and 3, right? There was no formal appointment. So this lady was fired. Things went wrong in between. And then now Thabang is supposed to take the heat. And for me, it didn't make sense because she was not formally appointed. She wasn't responsible for that. But why was she the one who was supposed to take the heat when things went wrong? And for me, that's when I started seeing that, this is the racial inequality that they talk about. But for me, Thabang breaking down in front of us, I kind of told myself I will never do that. You know, that also made me grow a thick skin. So, you know, these things happen. Just grow a thick skin. And when you know you're not in the wrong, you have to be vocal about it. You know what? Rather show them that you're not scared of them. You know, but never show them that you are scared. And you know what? You break down in front. Do not ever break down in front of these people, because when you do that, then whenever things go wrong, they will do the same thing and they know the end point. So you have to be steadfast. It's challenging, but be strong. You know, be strong, be vocal when it's time to be vocal, so that they know that you mean business and you're not scared of it. So yeah, for me, I would tell them to just mentally prepare themselves. You know, I'm not saying it's all the companies, but there are companies who are definitely horrible, and you know what, they will tear you down, but you have to be strong. So just go there with the.
And when you're on that, you say the company, when you say company, sometimes I always say to people, it's not the company that treats people bad. A company is the name and the building. It's people,
the people
who make it so impossible. And we always need to remember that when a company hires us, a company is an entity on its own, but it's just walls and a name. The people in it are the ones that make it so impossible. And when it no longer suits you, another thing I always say to people, when you feel like you have overstayed your welcome, your mental state is important. Sometimes it's okay to say it was great. I'm going to venture into something else. It's very important to always remember that, because we do not want any woman in any place to suffer in the hands of anyone because they just wanted a salary. Yeah.
Your mental health is much more expensive, because for me, that's why I'm saying my everyday prayer when I go to work is mental strength. You know, I was on the verge of a mental breakdown. And your mental strength and your mental health is very crucial. It's very crucial, because if it's torn down, then you literally lose yourself, right? You literally lose yourself. So hence I'm saying every graduate must just go there mentally strong. And if they have to fight, they must fight. And if it's going to cost them, it's fine. Rather walk out of there still in one piece and mentally strong. If you must just always be mentally stable, because I mean, once that is torn down, I promise you lose everything. You lose every single thing. So yeah, for my prayer, and for the graduates, your prayer should just be on mental strength, you know, because the problems never disappear. The problems are going to always be there. Like you say, the people. It's not really the company, the people. So those people will never go away. There's always
come in different form, shapes, sizes.
Yes, there's always going to be one or two who's going to challenge you, but just make sure you're mentally strong to take on that fight. Then you will definitely survive. You survive the corporate world.
Thank you so much, Mamelo, for sharing with us, and we hope that you have a steady future, and that one day you'll be a leader, and you'll be the woman to change spaces and being a woman in boardrooms, because that's where we're heading. The future is surely female, and that is not even debatable. It is what it is. So thank you so much for joining me on this platform, which is officially motivated, and I want to actually say this out loud. So the Working Class Women Movement is surely motivated by my dear friend Mamelo, who is joining us on this podcast. And I'm hoping that this segment will be under Unspoken Truth, but it becomes a movement going forward. Not only interviews in the podcast, but a movement in the sense of being a community to change the world, a community to change women. So the Working Class Women Movement was motivated by yours truly, Mamelo. So thank you so much, my friend. And we hope to catch up with you again, and we're here. And I think we'll catch up with you in December to see, give it a 6 month, 7 months to see how has your fight been. What are you doing in your space to change women, gender equality, and the pay gap? Because remember, the change is in your hands, not just in the company you work for. What is Mamelo doing going forward to change the narrative for every woman? Yeah.
Definitely. Let's touch base in December, and I'll tell you on the progress. And if there is progress.
There definitely is. We need to be positive. One change at a time.
Yes, definitely, Chomi.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Mamelo Korati. That's her name, Mamelo Korati. Thank you for joining me and gracing our platform. I want to hear from you all listeners to open this platform for all voices, where we can make the change and make that 100 years be less. It takes a like-minded woman to change the future of gender equality and women's rights. And this is where we need to go. This is where we need to find ourselves. And I say to you all, let's be the change we want to see. Women in leadership. Let's change the platform. Let's change the narrative. This is from me, your host, Nita Terry T, the host of Unspoken Truth. And again, for this new segment, I'll be the host of the Working Class Women Movement. Thank you.